Okay, I think we're good to go. Can everybody hear me okay? Hello and welcome to our first ever Cleveland online reading. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. My name is Matt Wankum. I'm the Associate Director of Literary Cleveland. Ours is a nonprofit organization that empowers people to explore other voices and discover their own. We do that by offering classes, workshops, reading classes on authors like Toni Morrison, as well as conferences, fellowships, magic writing elixirs, mystical amulets that prevent writer's block, and now, amazingly, online readings like this one. So thanks for joining us. Like all of you, we're mourning the loss of life as we knew it before COVID-19 reached the United States, which, if you can believe it, was just 2 or 3 decades ago now. And we're gonna do what we always done as a city and as a community, which is come together and support one another through a reading like here and through literature. So I'm really glad you're here. That's why we partnered with our friends at Brews and Prose, at the CSU Poetry Center, at 12 Literary Arts, Belt Publishing, and Writers in Residence to host this online reading for you. We got 6 readers for you tonight. Really excited about this, but before we get started, I'm just gonna let you know 3 things we'd like you to do. First, if you can, please buy or pre-order one of our readers' books from a local bookstore today. These writers spent years creating this work only to have it be published in the midst of this strange afterworld that we live in now. And if you buy their book, you're gonna support them, you're gonna support a local bookstore in our area, and you're gonna support yourself because you get their awesome book that you get to read. So please do that. Second, this reading is supporting the Greater Cleveland Food Bank. They're feeding up to 4,000 families a day now. So please, if you can, there's a link if you're on the YouTube, you can head down and donate to them too. The third thing that we'd like you to do tonight is enjoy this reading. It's gonna be great. And hopefully it's a happy hour too, so enjoy it with your favorite drink as well. So that's it, cheers, thanks for joining. I'm going to pass it off to our first reader now. Leila Chatti is the Anisfield Wolf Fellow in Writing and Publishing here at the Cleveland State University Poetry Center. Her new book of poetry, Deluge, will be published April 21st by Copper Canyon Press. Please welcome Leila Chatti.
Hi everyone. I'm here in Cleveland. I'm here as the Anisfield Wolf Fellow. I work at Cleveland State University, which is the best and has wonderful books, and you should also buy their books. But here is my baby, my soon-to-be born baby. All right, I think I'll just head into it. Thank you for being here also. Okay. Confession. And there's an epigraph from the Quran in which Mary is giving birth to Jesus in the desert, and she says, "Oh, I wish I had died before this and was in oblivion, forgotten." Truth be told, I like Mary a little better when I imagine her like this, crouched and cursing, the boy God pushing on her cervix. I like remembering she had a cervix, her body ordinary and so like mine, but lacing rivulets of sand, her small hands on her knees, not doves, but hands gripping, a palm pressed to her spine, fronds whispering like voyeurs overhead. Oh, Mary, like a god, I too take pleasure in knowing you were not all holy, that ache could undo you like a knot. And suffering, I admired this girl who cared for a moment not about God or his plans, but her own distinct life, this fiercer Mary who'd disappear if it saved her, who'd howl to hell with salvation if it meant this pain, the blessed adolescent who squatted indignant in a desert, bearing his child like a secret she never wanted to hear. Mary speaks. And what could I say when he entered? Rude as a dream, bare flame of a man with wings and demands not his own. I'd been raised a good girl, to house my tongue in my mouth, to be hospitable towards strangers, suspicious of no one. Perhaps I'd have been better off to be wary, but I'd been waiting so long to hear God speak, I hadn't thought to think of what he might tell me. Sarcoma. When the doctor says the word sarcoma, I consider how it might be a nice name for a daughter, that good feminine A, the way parents name their children for all sorts of inappropriate things. Apples, for instance, or the place where the baby was conceived. And I trace my fingers over the barrel of my belly as he speaks, flesh distended beneath the blue tissue I wear for a dress, an ideal grief rock, throwaway. And he says something about life expectancy, but of course I expect my life. So plain I thought nothing would ever take it. And while he explains, I cup my palms around my center, as if comforting a child or covering her ears. Litany while reading scripture in the gynecologic oncology waiting room. And God said, let there be blood. And God said, flood. And God said, good is a woman with fruit in her womb and not in her hand. And God said, sin. And God did not say, forgive. And God said, I will make a stormy wind. And God said, sun, a breath, stirring. And God said, highly favored. And God said, condemned. And God said, I will blot out man whom I have created, for I am sorry that I have made them. And God said, listen, and sank a boy in her like a stone. I think I'm gonna read. Let's go to the back. Annunciation. I have come to accept the story of my own obedience. How I waited, not knowing I was waiting, ear obliging, body poised. You sent a man I could not look at fully or touch. He was a flame which spoke, and I could not be afraid. As it's told, I rose instinctive as a dove, startled into flight, blue veil fluttering floorward and tongue unglued. May it be done to me, I said, and it was done so quickly. I thought to say it meant I had some say, but it was preordained. The breath barely out of my body before my mind had changed. And I'm gonna finish with this one. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's called Waking After the Surgery. And just like that, I was whole again. Seam like a drawing of an eyelid closed, gauze resting atop it like a bed of snow laid quietly in the night, while I was somewhere or something else, not quite dead, but nearly freer, myself unlatched for a while as if it were a dog I had simply released from its leash or a balloon slipped loose from my grip in a room with a low ceiling, my life bouncing back within reach, my life bounding toward me when called. Thank you.
Yes, amazing. Thank you so much, Leila. Remember, her book is Deluge. It's going to be out April 21st from Copper Canyon Press. Pre-order it today. Loganberry, Apple Tree, Max Backs, Physical Voice, any of those local bookstores, please. Okay, up next is Cortez Harris. Cortez is a CMSD school teacher and was the first Barbara Smith writer in residence at 12 Literary Arts. His forthcoming book of poems is titled We Made It to School Alive. Please welcome Cortez Harris.
Hello, thank you all for coming out today. Something that was not mentioned is 12 Literary Arts is actually becoming an independent press. And I have the honor of being their first author series that they will publish. So I'm really excited about that. I don't have a physical copy of my book yet. It will be out relatively soon. I know this pandemic it slowed everything down, but I do have, you can't probably see it, but you can't see it. I was trying to show you the book cover, but you can't see it because we're in a new world. But the first poem I'm going to read from my book is entitled Butterfly in the Flesh. Here we go. Somewhere, a butterfly settles near a herd of boys flowering. They draw closer. The butterfly doesn't flutter. They raise their hands to prove they're unarmed. Hundreds of mahogany-colored butterflies burst out of them like lightning, joining hands with fireworks. Only God seems to notice this glitz, because in the beginning, he said, "Let there be light," and a butterfly boy, as black as beginning, appeared in the flesh. Thank you. The next poem is entitled Ocean. My son runs his hands across a puddle outside our apartment, pretends it's an ocean he can swim in. I sent him to the school I dropped out of, hoping this time the teacher will hand him a telescope so he can see for himself that the world might be ocean. My son's desk looks how I left it. His teachers still haven't told him the world is a sea of whales. He watches YouTube in class as proof that somewhere water is wider than his classroom. At recess, I used to swing high as moss, push high enough. I almost saw beyond rooftops. I can still feel the hands. I hope he doesn't grow up like me, holding down mop buckets to keep the water running. I pray he can swim as far as his hand chooses to reach, where there is no cliff, no shore, no horizon. I always thought Glenville was the whole damn universe, and the sun and moon only had my son to look after. I haven't left, can't afford a U-Haul to carry our shit across the street. My son keeps begging me to take him to see the world. I'm afraid there are only swamps for him to dip his head in. Went to a parent-teacher conference. A poster hung from some nappy-ass cobwebs. It read, "You can do anything if you put your mind to it." I told my son, that poster won't move us out the hood, but that isn't to say his mind isn't a grenade. If he uses it, he could explode into a sea of reef. Next poem, Boom. Mr. Harris, we don't have a lot of money. We have a one-bedroom apartment with books as amenities. Before my daughter was born, I bookmarked her. Wanted her to know she would likely become a story. I was preparing her to read. My womb is an archive. When she was an embryo, a leaf I read, fell in love with her. The lips she forms, reads to me now. She found my baby tooth inside the mouth of my favorite book. Some magical habits can become a new universe. The last poem is entitled Alive. Shoes sprawled across the floor. Stefan blows bubbles across the classroom. They disperse into glitter. Children dive into bean bags as if they are plastic pools. Marshawn stands on his desk, tries to grab a cloud or two. Michelle, Cadence, play hide and seek under their desks. My God, my Black students are alive. Thank you guys for listening.
Woo! These are amazing. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Cortez. Again, be sure to check out more about his book and about 12 Literary Arts at their website, which is also below if you're on YouTube. Okay, our next reader is Raechel Anjali, who's from Cleveland and now lives in Minneapolis. Her new memoir about growing up in Cleveland is titled Rust Belt Femme, and it was published last month by the amazing Belt Publishing. So please welcome Raechel Anjali.
Hi, everyone. Matt, thank you so much for organizing this, and Leila and Cortez. That was amazing. So thank you. Yep, my book is Rust Belt Femme. I love Belt so much. I can't say enough good things about them. Wonderful independent press, women-led from Cleveland. Really, really proud to be part of that. So I'm going to read a chapter. It comes in at like 4 minutes, 40 seconds. So I'm going to try to get this in as quickly as I can, well, without going too fast. And just for some context, it's my memoir is relatively linear, but there are these sort of standalone chapters. And this is about Valley View, Ohio, and the canal, which is where I grew up in the beginning of my life. So chapter 4, Otherwise I Am Fine, Ghosts of Tinkers Creek, Specters of the Canal. Tinkers Creek is off of Canal Road, which means we pass the Ohio and Erie Canal every single day. When we get a rainstorm in the valley, the canal nearly always floods. At least one group of boys or men will take a raft out onto the street, paddling through the rising waters as the rest of us scoop out our basements with children's pails and buckets from our garages and tool sheds. When the water is calm, it is brown, surrounded by a mess of trees and wild weeds. Water is organic and bodies are too, but the depths of many of our canals, our lakes, our rivers, someone had to make them. The Ohio and Erie was made primarily of Irish immigrants digging and dying for a flask of whiskey and 30 cents a day. The impetus behind the canal was largely to make rich men richer. State Representative Alfred Kelly wanted a cheap way to transport goods between Lake Erie and the Ohio River. And so he put to work immigrants who used picks and shovels to break 308 miles of earth and who hauled and hoisted and hurled large sandstone rock to create locks for the water. Many of them died, their immune systems broken from 12-hour days, easy targets for malaria, what they called canal fever. According to Cleveland National Park Service, an Irishman was buried for every mile of canal constructed. I think about those bodies like rungs of a ladder lined up beneath the soil of the land where I sunk my bare toes. I think about their banal sacrifice, the expectation that one would work from dusk until dawn and likely catch a fever that would leave you dead, that the hard line of negotiation was whiskey because anything better was unrealistic and how else could you cope? In 1819, an Irish worker named Timothy Gagan wrote this letter to his sister. I don't know, dear sister, if any of us will live to survive, but God willing, we will live to see a better day. 6 of my tent mates died this very day and were stacked like cordwood until they could be taken away. Otherwise, I am fine. There's actually a cemetery on Tinkers Creek hidden in the woods a mile or so from where I grew up that is said to be full of Irish bodies, native bodies too. The only graves, though, belong to white settlers, which in the early 19th century didn't include the Irish. And so there's this earth and the bodies of indigenous people who were killed and buried in split logs, and then above them, the bodies of the Irish, and then more soil, and above that, the bodies and caskets of white people with a little more money and graves that gave them names eternal. I have Irish in my blood, although I don't think of any familiar relation to these workers, but I feel them in this history, in my memory of how the air in the Valley View was always just a little bit thick with spirits. And I certainly feel them as the roots of my convictions. Knowing I was reared on the bones of exploited labor is maybe just as significant as being parented by an exploited laborer. There is another ghost I only just learned about as an adult who I hope maybe also haunts me. Her name was Mary, but I believe she would have chosen differently if she could have. Historical documents describe her as a, quote, cross-dressing pig farmer, unquote, who was eccentric but agreeable. She lived in the house that later would be occupied by a wealthy white family called the Gleasons, then eventually owned by the Wiggenfelds. Prior to that, the barn was home to a suicide of a boy I went to school with. But this person, who I think if she had been lucky to live in a different era would maybe identify as Butch, existed just a few houses from me. I think about her strong hands, wearing overalls that she wasn't supposed to wear, a quiet queer without community or the language for it, feeling closer to her pigs than other humans. In my construction of her, from the sparse details I have, I start to develop a crush. How gentle she must have been, how much I would have liked to kiss her. When I am 30, I visit home for Christmas and go inside the house where she lived. I had ordered some flowers from Megan, the daughter of the Wiggenfelds, who lives there part-time, who was a year younger than me in school and who I like very much. We don't talk about Mary, but we talk about ghosts, about the boy we knew who took his life, about how she feels spirits there, and also about the night of my dad's car accident. I've never told you this, she begins, but my mom was the one who found your dad after he was hit by the car. I had no idea, and I feel the wind knocked out of me. It's actually what made her want to become a nurse, she says. That night changed her life. Megan and I weren't particularly close in school, but after learning this about her mom, I feel uniquely close to her. Both of our moms touched my dad's body that night. It feels significant. The Gleason Pig Farmer Wiggenfield house is the first house on Tinkers Creek. Our house was in the middle. The bar, Tinky's Tavern, where the man who hit my father got drunk that night, is at the very end. And all in between are the ladder rungs of dead Irish workers and the bones of erased Native families. Somewhere on the grounds is stained with my father's blood mixed with car oil, and with the screams of my mom and the moment Megan's mom knew she had to help save lives. It's all swirling about with the pain of my closeted caretaker and the pain of the pig farmer who I wish I could have kissed. You're not imagining it. The valley is full of ghosts. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Oh my goodness, I have an extra fan here too who joined us for the reading. We really appreciate that. Thanks, Raechel. Again, Raechel's book is Rest Belt Femme. It's out from Appropriately Belt Publishing. Pick it up today. It just came out last month. Special shout out to Maxbacks too, who is generously donating $1 from every online book order to Literary Cleveland and Northeast Ohio Coalition for the Homeless. So please order her book. All right, we're halfway. This is going fast. Next up is Philip Metris, a writer and professor at John Carroll University. He was scheduled to be the reader actually this upcoming Tuesday at Brews and Prose, but now Brews and Prose is coming to you. So it makes it easier. His new book of poetry, Shrapnel Mats, is published on April 24th by Copper Canyon Press. Please welcome Philip Metris.
Thanks so much, Matt. This is definitely the first reading that I've never worn pants for. And I don't think I've worn pants for about a month. It's been a very weird time, hasn't it? So I just wanted to thank Matt and Literary Cleveland, of course, Brews and Prose, Lydia, Dave, and of course, Copper Canyon Press for publishing Shrapnel Maps, which is coming out in a couple weeks. So I'm just really grateful. I see so many names of people that I know that are listening right now, and I just want to tell you hello, and I hope you're doing okay. And if you ever need anything, just send me a message, okay? So this book is, I decided to take a fairly uncontroversial topic and write about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. You know, I'm sick of doing books about things that are controversial, so I thought I would pick something that no one cares about. So this poem is called Family. At the Catholic University, a speaker clicks through slide after slide of barbed wire, cattle chute checkpoints, and walls. His mantra, occupation. What threatens the Christians, he concludes, is what threatens Palestinians. A woman stands up. I wanted to let everyone know, she says, that this talk was full of spin. I can't see her. She's behind me. I'm afraid to look back. The truth is the opposite. My heart goes out to her, standing in the heart of another country. The reason for the wall was that people were being attacked, she says, by terrorists. After all, the Arabs sold the land. It was too much trouble. I shrink back in my seat. And at a Catholic school, you should know what the church has done, especially during World War II. Then a man gets up. I can't see him. He's behind me. I'm afraid to look back. The Jews bought a tiny bit of land, but the rest was stolen. My heart goes out to him, standing in the heart of another country. But, he says, they did not buy everything, even if they buy Congress. I shrink again. She says, you have 14 Arab countries. Can't we have just one? They should take you in. He says, but this is our land. Why should we have to leave? Because Europe took it from us? That is why we fight. What about peace? Someone mumbles. He says, how can you negotiate over a pizza when one side continues to eat? She says, how can you negotiate over a pizza when one side is trying to stab you with knives? It goes on like this for a long time. Years, decades, generations. I sit like a child at the table, watch parents grip utensils, spit words like shrapnel. I hate how I love them. Ashamed, I look down, unable to bury the hot metal. So this is a book that travels a lot of territory. And one of the things it's trying to do is think about neighborhoods, neighbors, neighborhoods, about relationships, both individual and societal and national and sort of global. And so thankfully, in addition to the conflict that's necessarily described, there are some poems of connection and communion and love. This is a love poem. I think probably at this point, we all sort of need more love poems. You there, between things and the words for things, for a taste of your mouth, I forsake gorging, for giving this my body, your body, always but suddenly, between things and the words for things, for your shining eyes slide over my nighted sight. I want to dispel the delusion of separation, almost enough to shatter the glass of self. Forgive our body always, but suddenly there is this singing, this inexplicable turning as bird follows spring, its translucent skull tuned to gathering light. And though I tunnel mute, this tongue works a small space open with one wet wing. I don't want to overstay my welcome, but I just wanted to give one shout to Zach and to the Writers in Residence program. Right now, unfortunately, as Zach will probably describe, or as others will describe, no one's allowed to go into the facilities right now in detention facilities. And so there's a lot of people there who are very isolated, and maybe Zach will share something about the letter campaign that they've got going on. So that's my 5 minutes. Be strong, be well, we'll get through this. Take care.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you. So great. We're having trouble connecting with Susan, so we're gonna call an audible here. We're gonna hope to lip her in the end here, and we're gonna switch to Writers in Residence. So Writers in Residence is a local program that teaches creative writing to youth who are incarcerated in jails and prisons. To hear more about the program and the writers, I'm going to turn it over to the founder of Writers in Residence, Zach Thomas.
Good evening. Excuse me. Thank you, Matt, for having organizing all of this, and thank you everyone for being here. Really appreciate it. I'm actually one of 4 co-founders. It was me and a few other my peers. But in case no one recognizes me or knows who I am, I'm Zachary Thomas. I'm one of the Anisfield Wolf Book Awards Fellows and the Program Director for Writers in Residence. We currently teach creative writing workshops to youth who are incarcerated in jails and prisons across Ohio, like Matt mentioned. And as Phil alluded to as well, we're unable to do that because of COVID-19. A lot of lockdown and restrictions have been placed to prevent the spread of coronavirus inside juvenile correctional facilities. Unfortunately, though, one of our residents who was recently released from Indian River Juvenile Correctional Facility was unable to join us this evening. But here with us to read some of his creative writing on his behalf is Kat Baker. Kat is a sophomore at the College of Worcester studying Spanish and psychology. She is also one of our cohort leaders at Worcester who has worked closely with Costco.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kat. One of the things that we loved most about Costco was his infectious sense of humor and his positive attitude. We could always rely on him to participate in our workshops and then encourage others to participate as well. So this evening, I'll be reading 3 untitled pieces written by Costco. The first one is, food somewhat raised me. Also, I guess the river raised me. Running the streets at night, I was raised by darkness. The second one is, one drop of water dropping into more water. Splash. Hard to get away. I like to laugh at things shouldn't be funny, probably to avoid feeling the loud bangs that shake the train tracks. And the third one, every time I go to jail, I am forced to come and it is a waste of my life, and they just might as well kill me if they want to do nothing with my life. And you can visit writersinresidence.org for more information and resources. And in a few weeks, Writers in Residence will be publishing all of our residents' creative writing in chapbooks that are available online and in print by request.
Thank you, Kat, and thank you again, everyone who put this together, specifically Matt, running the show here. Because of the novel coronavirus, we're unable to facilitate our creative writing workshops, like I said, but our response to this has been our letter writing initiative. So we're going to be collecting letters from everyone, a part of our community in Cleveland, Ohio, doesn't really matter, and sending those letters directly to our residents in all of our juvenile correctional facilities. If you'd like to participate, just email us at writersletterinresidence@gmail.com or contact us on Facebook and Instagram. And I'll be hanging out afterwards in some of the little meeting rooms if you want more information. So thank you.
Give it up for writers in residence doing amazing, amazing work in the community. And please, please sign up to do their letters campaign. It's such a great initiative right now and exactly what we need. I think we're still having some trouble connecting Susan. I've been told to like stretch to vamp a little bit to see if we can get her to connect for just a minute. So just a reminder here that you can check out, if you're on YouTube, all of the organizations that are involved here: Literary Cleveland, Brews and Prose, CSU Poetry Center, 12 Literary Arts, Belt Publishing, Writers in Residence as well. You can find out more about them there. You can please order or pre-order books by some of these writers from your local bookstore. You can use, just go right to the link to those folks, or you can go to bookshop.org to order through them, and that money goes back to bookstores as well. I think I might have just had Susan connect here, so maybe I stretched long enough here. Susan, are you here at all? Are you able to connect and hear us? I'm hoping. I added your name to the list. I see you. Can I hear you? Susan, can you hear us? I think Susan is frozen. We have a frozen Susan. What would our first online reading be without some technical glitch? I'm going to see if Susan luckily connects here. Otherwise, oh, Susan, you're moving. This is good. This is good news. You can hear us. You can hear me. I don't have your sound, but otherwise you're here. I can't hear your audio yet, but I think you're connected somehow.
Hi. Thank you for your patience. What a time for the internet to go out at our house. Am I on?
Yes, you're good. Go ahead.
Hi. My name is Susan Petrone. I'm the author of The Heebie-Jeebie Girl. I don't know if you can see it. It takes place in 1977 Youngstown, and it's told by 4 different voices, one of which is the city of Youngstown herself. And she starts the book off. So I'm just going to read a little bit from her. And Youngstown is a she, by the way. I imagine her as some old lady sitting next to you at the bar, like bumming cigarettes and caging free drinks all night. Youngstown. I can hear you, you know. I can hear the rumble of cars and trucks, the jumble of notes from your radios and record players and instruments, the constant hum of you walking and talking and yelling and crying. I feel you too. Your voices and all the things you've made, the clang and bang and burn of the mills and the trains that feed them. You are in me. I can feel your vibrations. Don't think that I don't. I feel your parades and festivals and your fires too. Some cities sing, some play, some are filled with constant motion and tourists and people and fancy food. Me, I'm filled with fire, soot, and melting iron ore. Sometimes I listen to you and your conversations, your arguments, your long rambling talks about life and philosophy over a few beers, your quiet talk with your kids right before they fall asleep. Hell, I probably heard you making love with your sweetie. Think about that the next time you hop in the sack. Some of your conversations are more interesting than others. Some of you are more interesting than others. I'm not God or your mother. I'm allowed to play favorites. I watch you the way you watch television. I'm not old, not like some cities. I'm no Rome or London, and they'd be the first ones to say so. I'm not saying they're snobs, but they like to pretend they're a little better than the rest of us. They act like they're filled with the best and the brightest, like their streets are whitewashed, like they've never had streams of piss and vomit and blood in their gutters. I know better. We all have our secrets and our slums. I may not be ancient, but 175 years is nothing to sneeze at. I'm not some Johnny-come-lately new suburb out in the boondocks or one of those crazy planned retirement communities down in Florida. And I'm not a ghost town. There's real history in me, things worth noticing, worth knowing. Writers and musicians and movie producers and real estate tycoons have called me home. You know the Warner Brothers? The ones who started a movie studio and named it after themselves? They were my boys. So was Harry Burt. You say you don't know who Harry Burt was? Have you ever eaten an ice cream cone, an ice cream bar on a stick from the Good Humor Man? Of course you have, and you can thank Harry Burt for that. And for all you young punks, I have 2 words: Stiv Baders, also one of mine. You might say plenty of cities can lay claim to famous sons and daughters. You might say that I'm dirty and worn out and unloved. Maybe. But does your city have magic? Not pretend. Not some cheap sleight of hand, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain crap, but genuine, can't be explained by logic or reason magic? I thought not. Thanks very much, Cleveland and all the readers. The Heebie-Jeebie Curl comes out in digital form on April 21st and in hardcover on June 9th. And please, available at any of your local bookstores. And back to you, Matt.
Thanks, Susan. That was excellent. I'm so glad you joined. Again, that's Susan Petrone, the Heebie-Jeebie Girl. I think, the hardback has moved back to July, but you can order the digital copy now. That's great to know. That's excellent. We're going to give one big round of applause to all of our readers online. So if you're on Zoom, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1, and I'm going to unmute everyone, and we're going to try to break Zoom by all applauding and screaming for each other at the same time. All right, you ready to give this a shot? Okay, here we go. For all of our readers, thank you so much. Thanks everyone for joining. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Yes! Come on.
You guys.
Shoot my dogs. What's going on?
Okay, it might just be me again. That was fantastic. Thank you so much to our readers. Thank you to everybody who showed up. Don't forget, please, please, please buy a book today. Support your local bookstore, support your local authors. If you can, donate to Greater Cleveland Food Bank and keep writing and reading. For those who are on Zoom right now, stick with us. We're gonna still be around. We're gonna join into breakout groups right now, and so we can like chat as though it's after a reading. If you're on the live stream, I'm gonna end that now and say goodbye to you. So thank you to the people who joined in the live stream. So if you're on Zoom, stick on. If you're watching us live online, thank you for joining.